My name is Johannie, most of you know me. I've been at Newbold Church for 16 years now, and Newbold has shaped me in many ways in my adult life. My family and I love being here. Daryl and I moved here shortly after being married. They say the first year of being married is the hardest, and it's true. For me, it's true. We came here, we didn't know many people, we had a long-distance relationship, and then we had to, learn to live together, different habits. It was a steep learning curve, and most of you know Daryl travels a lot. After being married, I think a month he already left me to South Africa. So yes, it was tough. But what I do want to say is, out of the 16 years of being here, my parents were a big part of our lives. Gilles, my sister, most of you know her, and Ben, they were a big part of our lives. Eve and Sylviane recently left us. So all these people left, but Newbold is the constant in our life. It's my stability, the base in my life. So it's great to have Newbold. A couple of years after joining Newbold Church, I got involved in teaching Sabbath school here, 6 and 7 years old. It's quite funny because this morning as I was preaching in the early service, Pastor Sleeman was here, and he had this announcement in the bulletin where they needed teachers for that class, and we found ourselves, I went to Heather Hannah's house to have a bit of training, and we found ourselves, Rachel, please just give a wave. Rachel, Sylviane and I, we never consulted each other, but we found each other together there. It was so funny. There are two French people and me French speaking, and we had this class to teach. I think we were 4 teachers, and we found it overwhelming. And Rachel and I, we often chuckle because we're like, how come we manage now? We're just one person, one adult with the children, but we were 4 and we found it too much. So life is a journey. I've been teaching Sabbath school ever since. Asun, you were also part of that too. I've been teaching Sabbath school ever since, and it's always been a big part of my life, as far as I can remember as a child. And I'm so grateful for my mom for instilling that in me. So from early on for me, the stories, the Bible stories, Daniel, Joseph, Moses, Elijah, Jesus, his disciples, the miracles, they form part of my fabric and built up my belief system. So my brain was registering all the stories. The God of Abraham, the God of Jacob, the God of Isaac and Jacob was also my God, Johannie's God too. Through learning the memory verses, they would become my own. There's one that I would repeat all the time. I'm sure many of you as well, it meant something to you. The Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them from danger, from Psalm 34, verse 7. I remember living in this house, and if my parents at night said, go and get something which was across the way to the other side, I would be repeating that the whole way. The Lord, the angel of the Lord encamps. And I grew up in Mauritius, so it was in French. I love in French, it says, the way it describes it, it's like he uproots you like a plant from danger, like takes you off. You want me to say it? L'ange de l'Éternel campe autour de ceux qui le craignent et les arrache du danger, like unplucks you from danger. I remember being 4, 5 years old and going to Sabbath school and being amazed at the mission stories. I was wowed by them. And being a pastor's child, we moved church a lot, and there was one particular church that had amazing teachers. They spent a lot of time preparing for us, and they had amazing 13 Sabbath programs. And I remember one time we were learning this song. I was so enthusiastic. I was singing away. Eileen, you'll be hearing singing away. She knows all about me singing away. And I was singing away, and then this teacher told me, maybe not so loud. And I was quite offended. And afterwards, I started to sing, but like no sound coming out, just miming like here. And as those thoughts came to my mind, I thought, They do this to me in choir, and I realize I'm an adult now. I don't get it when they do this, and I used to do the same thing. Sorry, kids. There's a time in my life I was not close to immediate family as a young person. That's when I was at university here in England. My parents had gone back to the Indian Ocean by then. And you know how it is when you're at uni, you have to decide, is that your faith as well, or was it your parents? Was it a cultural habit? Your home church is far. And you meet a lot of clever people at uni who all have different ideas, different from your own. But I knew all my life that I believed in God. No matter what happened to me, I would still believe in God. I realized that those Bible stories I learned as a child, the mission stories from the Sabbath school, they played a big part in shaping my faith. I felt that knowing my Bible stories from early on helped me to have a more concrete faith, and I was not easily shakeable. There was a foundation there, and I was not built on sand. And it helped me a lot during those uni times. I'm not saying it was plain sailing. You know, at 19, you're leaving your teenage years, going to adult years. You're still figuring out where you stand. You think you should be having a boyfriend at that time. But having God in my life was a real anchor. Another time after uni was when I started to work in Germany. I don't know why, now thinking about it, really, I didn't speak the language, I didn't know much. So I advise you young people, don't think, go for it, because nowadays I will think 10 times before doing something. Gilles, if you're watching, she's been telling me, come for half term. I'm like, I'm not too sure. But at 40, I've become like this, but Daryl at 40, he hasn't lost it. Let's go, he's there. But anyway, young people, go for it when the opportunity is there. Don't think 10 times. So yes, being in Germany, I didn't speak the language. FaceTime and WhatsApp, all of that didn't exist then. Having a mobile phone, having your own laptop was not a common thing. So I didn't hear from my parents a lot, hear from family and friends. And I would be, you have a lot of time to think. And my thoughts would take me back to my childhood days. I had a French hymn with me. I would be singing away, and then the tears would flow because suddenly I could understand deeper what those words meant. So I'm just saying that for me, doing choir at school, I don't feel I should be choosing only kids' song all the time because I don't know what seed I'm planting at this time, and when they get older, they might hear this song again and it would mean something to them. Or maybe they might hear the song again and remember me. Mrs. Gungadoo, ah! Yes. Recently, I was doing the adult Sabbath school, and one of the Bible verse was as follows. It's from Matthew 7:21 to 23. Matthew 7:21 to 23. This is a Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus speaks to the people in Galilee, and it starts with the Beatitudes, and towards the end of this long talk of teaching and instructing the people, Jesus says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'" The lesson then elaborated on that and said, these people made two fatal mistakes. First, despite whatever great things they had done in the Lord's name, they weren't doing the Lord's will, which was to obey him. Their emphasis was on themselves and on what they had accomplished. "Didn't we do this in your name? Or didn't we do this other thing all in your name too?" How far removed from Christ must they have been to point to their own works in an attempt to justify themselves before God. You know, that took me by surprise. I saw myself saying to God for the first time, because of the way my life goes, I study my Sabbath school, but very often I have a long, long list of things to do. They're all good things, really good. I constantly serve my family, the school, our school, behind me, the church, in the form of looking after children's Sabbath school, being involved in sisterhood. All those things take all my time. I'm constantly in the spinning wheel going tick, 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 done, done, done. I'm doing all those things working in God's vineyard. So I'm doing His will. But I realized at the time to just invite God in my life, talk to Him, surrender, just spend quiet time, was if there wasn't something more urgent to take care of. I felt that I'm doing God's work, so it's okay that I'm not having time to stop because I'm doing God's work. But suddenly I realized that for myself personally, I was not allowing God to have time with me, so I could ask and listen for His will. I saw myself saying to God, but God, hold on. You have all this wrong. Why are you saying I never knew you? Didn't you see me spending hours sorting out children's Sabbath school? Miriam and I can tell you it is hours. They all took my time. I didn't spend time for myself, hardly. I don't have time to go shopping for myself, sit and watch TV. And then I saw that what I was doing with God. I was giving a list to God of my good deeds to prove to Him that I more than 100% qualified to enter His kingdom. And the lesson said, how far removed from Christ must they have been to point to their own works in an attempt to justify themselves before God. The only works that will save us, are Christ's, credited to us by faith. Our assurance exists not in ourselves or in our works, but only in what Christ has done for us. Personally, I felt that God was saying, it's good. It's really good, all those things you're doing. But have you come to me to speak to me first and go through it with me, rather than feeling you don't have the time, God. As soon as I'm done, I will come and sit at your feet. I can't say that I'm fully there yet, but I'm learning to stop. Jacques Ducamp came and preached recently in the other service. He came to teach the students at the college, and he was teaching the book of Ecclesiastes. And he was saying how it's all about vanity. Self is there. But in the middle of the book, chapter 5, he doesn't talk about this. It's God telling you, hush, slow down, enter my temple. Don't rush. Listen to me. Come to receive rather than give. That shocked me. We're so used to this as you grow up. What have you done you're a Christian. What are you doing for other people? And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but hush, slow down your steps. Come and receive from me. Come and be refilled. And I feel this applies with our children too. We're teaching them when we have worship with them at home to stop. And it will develop a habit. I listened to this lady once. She talked about family worship. And she said that after a while, they grow up and the children will have their own personal devotion as, teenagers. And by then, you can't tell them what to do. You can only come and advise what they could be studying. So I've gone through all the Bible, the Sabbath school now with my children. You start at cradle roll, that's where the babies. You think nothing is happening there, but believe me, loads of things are happening. And what precious time to be with them as well at this stage. And then you move on. What comes after cradle roll? Kindergarten, then primary, PowerPoint, and then real time. Now, I'm here, of course, we're children's Sabbath school coordinators, so it's like I'm selling this, but at the end of the day, if you don't want to use that material, you go back to the Bible or whatever else. That's fine. I just want to encourage family worship. So as you arrive to real time, that's where the teenagers do this lesson. By that time, they don't do Bible stories anymore. It's more concept. What is baptism? What is forgiveness? What is faith? So you have 12 years in the life of your children to be able to, bring those Bible stories to them. And it's not long, believe me, 12 years goes by really fast. I was listening to Stuart Town, and I went to his concert in Reading recently. We all know him. In Christ Alone, I think, is one of his famous hymns. And he spoke also about this, the importance of Bible stories, and he uses them in his songs. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by this idea of family worship. Short. You don't need to wait for the right ingredients, that mom and dad must be there. You need to be in the living room. It needs to be a certain length. No, but just give your children that time, and it's a chance of also for them to ask you questions. And for grandparents, aunties, uncles, do what you can. And the best time is for you, really, because at the end of the day, you can send them back to their parents. And there's a lot of uncles and aunties, grannies I've seen who bring their children to Sabbath school. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you a lot for Cradle Roll. Most of them are grandmas who are teaching that class. We love it. Thank you very much for speaking life to that generation. So I haven't spoken at all. I haven't brought the scripture reading at all in the sermon. So what I wanted to do, I didn't want to leave you with Matthew 7:21-23, like away from me, evildoers. I didn't want you to go back left with that. So Psalm 146, when I read it, I felt it so beautiful. To me, I could fit all those 12 years of Bible stories into that book. It's all in there. So what I would like you to do, a little exercise, is if you open Psalm 146, and I would like you in your row, just your row, there's no need to move, and especially if the children are with you, involve them. Look through that psalm and see as many Bible stories you could pick from that psalm that you can see. So I'm giving you 5 minutes. Darryl will start the countdown. So just on your row, just have a discussion, open Psalm 146, and as many Bible stories you can come up with. Okay, time's up. I'm going to tell you the things that came to my mind, and if it has come to you, I want to see your hands up to see if you also came up with that name. It's not a test, okay? It's not a test. Just nice to see. Yes, sure. I didn't put all of them on there either. So from Psalm 146, the first two about praise, I just felt there are sometimes people there's a whole chapter of them praising God for what He's done for them. I have Daryl, so just put, these are the people I have. David, Miriam, after they crossed the Red Sea. Anyone had David? Yeah? Anyone had Miriam? Yeah, thank you. Daniel, he does a lot of that. There's a lot of praise. Anyone had Jonah? I believe it was in the belly of the fish he was praising God. Good, good. Elvana, brilliant. Chapter 3, 4. So here it's about, who to put your trust in, and it's advising not to put your trust in men, not in kings. So there's a lot of kings. Anyone had Nebuchadnezzar? Yes? Anyone had King Darius? No? Okay, that was after Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. He comes after. Evil King Ahab, he was really, really bad. They shouldn't have put their trust in him. And Daryl, who do you have next? Saul? King Saul? Okay. I had King Solomon. Good. All right, then chapter 5, 6. This is all about creation. So I had, of course, creation story. Yes, I think most of you will say creation story. Jacob, I like how it says, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Um, I had Moses. I think in all of them I had Moses because, the story is so long. Joshua also came in there. Then I grouped 7, 8, 9 together. So there's a lot in there. So Ruth? Yes, I think many would have Ruth. So it's all about the people who are hungry, who are oppressed, the widows. Zacchaeus? Yeah? Moses? Again, he's seen it all. Joseph? The famine that they had, the 7 years of famine. Elijah? Yes, we had Elijah. The Greek widows, the Jewish widows and the Greek widows when they had to distribute the food. Mephibosheth, who was Jonathan's son, who was disabled. Thank you, Miguel. You had that. Yeah, there's so many more in that. And Dorcas, yes, was one of them. And so many of them, they were at both ends, the receiving end and the giving end. They were able to do both. Next one. So that's the end about praising God. He reigns forever. And with the Bible stories, they go through Revelation, they go through the New Jerusalem, the Lamb of God, the throne, and the water of life coming from the throne, the tree of life. And I feel that links with primary. You do a lot with the sanctuary as well. There's a time. I remember Bianca, she really knew these names. They were the one in charge of building the ark. They had all the dimensions, and that links again to Moses. And I feel, wow, if you grow up with these stories, how rich would you be able to bring this psalm out with the children? And you could take it again and then go through life now, what they're going through, what they're seeing. How could you could put that into context of what's happening now as well. So I just finishing off, and just to say, I was listening to radio recently while driving. It was during the hot summer, and this gardening expert was saying to Gabby Roslin, you need to soak the plants, give them a good soak of water, because otherwise the roots are just going to stay at the surface if you don't water them enough. And the root system won't develop, it won't go down, and it's not going to be a strong plant. And that made me think again of our parable, being built on sand and being built on the rock. So I just want to encourage you. No way do I want you to feel overwhelmed, but let's just build into giving our children the chance to hear those Bible stories and have time for them to ask us questions. So may God bless you and have a lovely Sabbath. And we're going to sing our song again. And at the end, the children, some children with Maria will give you the words of the song, Oh How Good, and you may be able to enjoy it. So on behalf of Miriam and I and everyone who's helping out, thank you.